Hey guys, Dork Humility here. You can always catch me at twitch.tv/Dark Humility for 6 to 7 days a week of Diablo 2 action. Of course, we're going to be going hard on the D2R first ladder when it launches. We do not have the date yet. But when we do, we'll be going hard, going to 99 on a sorceress. On hardcore first thing, and we're going to have a vibrant hardcore community, and hopefully we can help out all of the softcore people as well with awesome information and guides. You can always check out all of my other D2R guides and D2 guides in general on my YouTube here, and of course you can check out all of my written guides, which this one will be part of. This will be inside of the written guide for the Jab Fend Amazon on Maxroll, so d2.maxroll.gg. For all of your Diablo 2 needs, literally every resource imaginable. Of course, more always coming for helping you guys learn more about Diablo 2, learning about all kinds of different builds, just such good, high-quality information from high-quality people and streamers and people that have over 20,000 hours of experience apiece, including myself. Today, we have for you, though, the Jab Fend Amazon guide. So this is the first guide I'm actually making using the D2R graphics themselves, and we're making this guide on patch 2.4 because it has been updated for 2.4. So unlike the other builds that I've already made guides for, this build probably received the most significant changes. A huge attack speed buff on Fend, and some useful utility on Impale, so that is why we're making it on here. Of course, at some point I plan to redo all of the guides to some extent on the D2R graphics as well. Even though this is on the D2R graphics, though, this is an imported save file from our pluggy single-player completed Holy Grail, where we found all of our items. And so all these items are solo self-found, so versions of them can be better, of course, no doubt. Anyway, let's get into this insanely awesome build. Jab Fend Amazon. She is really strong, really fun. It might not be the most insanely powerful physical damage character ever, but it's come a long way, especially since the recent buff. I would put her currently in terms of her overall capabilities at C tier. She can do virtually anything, though, so her versatility is pretty high. We're going to try to demo her in as many areas as possible after we go over her stats, skills, the mercenary gear, and of course her own gear. So we're going to be trying to demo those, and of course we'll be demoing Ubers. And of course she's very strong at all kinds of tasks. So let's get started. Let's check out her stats and see what's going down here. So got a level 95 Amazon. Once again, you can get it at a higher level. No problem, though. Alright, strength. So strength on a Jab Fend Amazon in general, you want to, of course, at the bare minimum, put enough strength and dex to wear your gear. I would always say put enough dex to wear your gear, except in rare instances where you're going max block, such as on a safer Ubers build that's using a shield like Storm Shield or something. But for the most part, you only put enough dex in to wear your gear. Strength, you put enough to wear your gear. However, I actually prefer to put more than that in order to gain more attack damage. So the strength will increase your attack damage, increases the attack damage of Jab and Fend, and makes her even more effective just in general. Of course, the amount you put in is kind of up to you. I like putting somewhere between 100 to 300 extra points into strength. But that's up to you, though. I put in like about 100-ish plus extra points on this one just to show you a bit more of a standard approach. And then, of course, the rest of the points you put into vitality and nothing into energy. One thing to note is her damage is indeed insanely high. It's no joke. Obviously, you want as much damage as possible, which is mostly going to be determined by your weapon and other items in this build. Attack rating, getting around 10,000 attack rating for most normal activities that aren't Ubers is pretty fine. If it's Ubers, you can use a Demon Limb to increase your attack rating, which we'll show later. Defense doesn't really matter too much on this build. Amazons don't have Don't have any defense buffs anyway, so defense isn't really that important of a stat. So there's no way to like avoid getting hit that way, but there's other ways to avoid getting hit. They're actually pretty major. And of course we have decent amount of resistances. I definitely recommend your resistances are at least decent. Of course on the Maxroll guide itself, where this video guide will be, I make sure I have pretty much max res in most situations, if not all situations. But that's with really good gear. So for the most part, just make sure resistances isn't going to just get you outright killed. Unless you're playing hardcore, then you definitely want to prioritize your resistances, of course, as well as damage reduction and other stats. Today we're going to be only going over the mostly the standard build and the approach to Ubers, like the damage approach to Ubers. But I definitely recommend checking out all the build variants, including the hardcore build variant on Maxroll, just to learn more about what kinds of gear changes you can do to make yourself tankier and whatnot. We'll briefly go over other gear options, of course, while we are going over the gear itself. So yeah, it's good stuff. Anyway, Magic Find, not insanely important, but you can get as much Magic Find as possible. You can definitely get more Magic Find through various pieces of gear. War Traps, for instance, can give you more gear. I'm just wearing Gore Riders for all purpose right now because I'm also going to kill the Ubers. But even on the Maxroll planner, if you're going for like MF, I'm showing War Traps. So your MF is, just get as much MF as you can if you are farming normally. And of course, you can also get more MF in Charms. I currently have 0 in Charms, so this is kind of like an all-purpose build. But yeah, like you can definitely get more MF. I'd say the standard farming build, which is the standard build on the Maxroll guide, has a lot more MF, so get as much as you can. Lifesteal is actually pretty important on this build. You do a ton of damage with a two-handed weapon. So if you can bridge it, if you can take it, you should get as much lifesteal as possible in your gear. There's a lot of sources of it: ring sources, bell sources, obviously the weapon, which is really good with that as well. I could have even more life leech if this rolled even better on the life leech, but it just depends. At least one source of mana leech is recommended. You don't need like a ton or anything, you just need a little bit. Lifesteal is insane though, definitely helps you sustain very well in this build in general. Definitely the most important source of sustain. And then of course, whatever else you can really get just in general. Attack speed is really important. So this build is way more responsive the more attack speed you have. Hitting a pretty good breakpoint with 125 attack speed. You could definitely go a little bit lower than this though if you want to use slightly different items. The frames are shown in green on the D2.maxroll.gg guide, or teal or whatever that color is. The ones that are like considered to be pretty good attack speed frames. Kind of just depends on what you're going for, but in general, that is a really good amount. You can get even more, of course, and with the fanaticism approach, you can get even more attack speed, especially for jab, not just fend. With 125, though, we actually have a max attack speed for fend itself, so we're actually good to go when it comes to most types of farming. 52% faster hit recovery, so that's a very important hit recovery frame. There's also the 32% one if you can't hit 52. I'd recommend trying for 52, but 32 is also fine. Negative target defense just helps you hit things. Of course, that's off of Breath of the Dying. So if you can get negative target defense, it's just good for, it helps supplement your attack rating, and it's also effective somewhat against bosses. And then of course there's all kinds of damage stats in general. Crushing Blow. Crushing Blow is going to be really important against bosses and Ubers. So is the slowest target stat. And of course Deadly Strike and whatnot. And Cannot Be Frozen. Definitely make sure you have at least one source of Cannot Be Frozen on your build. You're attack speed based build. Attack speed based builds and normal Diablo 2, D2R and whatnot, they definitely need to make sure they don't get frozen, because it definitely hurts you quite a bit. Alright, so that's pretty much a pretty good overview. On Ubers, you're going to want to stack a lot more lightning res. You're going to want to get, you're going to want to see that bonus number there be at 310 at minimum, or at least close to 310, so you don't die from Uber Mephisto. course, you're also going to want to use T-Gods for that as well, and of course, if you stack your other res for the Ubers, it can help quite a bit as well. But we'll go over that and go over more on the Ubers. Alright, so that's it for the stats. Skills are pretty easy. I recommend putting Max into Jab and Fend because Jab is insanely good against bosses and single targets, whereas Fend responds really well when you're either surrounded or you're just near multiple enemies. And I like to max both of them. There's not a lot you would max anyway unless you're going like a hybrid build besides these two. Like if you're going bow builds and whatnot, but since we're not using a bow, we go nothing in that tree anyway. Impale is not a primary damage skill, it's a great utility skill though, so... and it doesn't have any attack rating on its own, because it always hits like Smite now, but it provides slow. And that slow effect is actually very effective against bosses and whatnot, so opening up with it against Ubers and bosses, like especially like Bale, prevents them from moving as much and attacking as quickly, and it can help out quite a bit. And of course, you can renew it as soon as it wears off. It's way too slow though. It's still way too slow, even in patch 2.4, to be used as an actual damage ability. They could still change that right before ladder launches, but I don't see that happening. If that does change, though, maybe you're going to want to max that as well, but I doubt it. You're going to want to max or nearly max crit strike. Just pay attention to whether or not that last level achieves an extra percent crit chance. I don't even know if we did this one correctly. Maybe not. Might be like one off. Penetrate, you're going to want to max penetrate for sure. It's just free attack rating. That is attack rating you're definitely going to need. And then dodge, avoid, and evade. So you can put anywhere from 1 to 5 points into each of these. Right now there's only 1 point to each of them. But dodge, avoid, and evade are actually pretty insane. They might be nerfed a little bit. You might have to put more points into them for them to be more effective if they do change the values on them. But right now, there's no penalty for using them. It's free damage mitigation no matter what you're doing. Walking, running, attacking, taking ranged attacks or melee attacks. So yeah, just keep in mind though that this is a pre-ladder launch though, so it's possible they might change them where you have to invest even more points for them to be effective. But I imagine that putting at least 1 point into each of them will always be effective no matter what, and then putting a few more points into each will be good. And then of course I put the rest of my points into Valkyrie, and then if you make sure you have 1 point to each of these, you also have a nice battery of support skills you can use as you are fighting. So, that's pretty much the skills. Pretty easy stuff, honestly. Mercenary. Mercenary, you're going to want to make sure you have a Might or a Mercenary. Pretty much always, doesn't matter like how good of gear you have and whatnot, just to boost your damage. A Might or Act 2 Mercenary is really good. If you want to go a more defensive approach, of course, you can use an Act 5 Mercenary with Battle Cry. But that's when you don't have gear. Of course, you can also use Act 5 Battle Cry Mercenary with Lawbringer, which can be your source of Decrepify. But if you get your hands on any kind of Reaper's Toll whatsoever, even a non-authorial one, it will be a lot better in combination with Might, and you'll be set up. So offensive, just want as much damage as possible. Reaper's Toll, really, really good stuff. It's just a lot of damage, and you get a lot of damage. You get negative 50% enemy physical res when it procs the Decrep, which is why you want as much attack speed as possible in the Mercenary. Getting 75% attack speed, which is a breakpoint, allow him to proc that Decrepify as much as possible, which is why you use Treachery. And then you can use a lot of things, but G-Face will allow the Mercenary to help you out with damage against bosses. He has a lot of Crushing Blow and Deadly Strike there as well. And of course you have your Life Leech on Reapers, so you don't necessarily have to use like V-Gaze or Vampire Gaze or Darl's Visage. But that being said, Vampire Gaze has more damage reductions, so there's other good approaches if you put an attack speed tool like in that instead of this. But this is a very strong damage approach, and I feel like this is probably the ultimate setup you can pretty much have if you're looking for the maximum amount of damage on a Jab in Amazon. Alright, so that's pretty good stuff overall. Pretty much went over the gear. Yeah, I mean, you can go like Fort too, but just keep in mind, though, attack speed allows him to proc Decrepify more, and that overall is going to be the most important thing for your damage. Alright, let's go into our own gear. So our own gear, there's a lot of options for a Jab Fend Amazon. So many options. In fact, I have so many different variations of this build shown on Maxroll, so you can kind of see how many different approaches you can go. And of course, under the gear options, you can also check out just how many different things work with this build to some degree, anywhere from some degree to a lot of degree. You could definitely use like a Lycander's Flank if you upgrade it. An Ethereal Honed Sundan is like a great intermediate option if you upgrade it using the upgrade recipe. Perfect Emerald Lum Hull. And of course, this is what I would say to be pretty close to the ultimate weapon. A Matriarchal Spear would be insane because you could potentially get 3 more Javelin and Spear skills, which just helps you out with attack rating and damage to some degree, as part of the actual weapon base. And it's the fastest base, so Ghost Spear and Matriarchal Spear are the fast bases. They do a little bit less damage. War Pike and Matriarchal Pike. Matriarchal Pike would also have Javelin and Spear levels skills on it potentially. Those are the slower weapons. I like the faster weapons in general. They tend to get better frames no matter how much attack speed you have. And they just tend to be more responsive in general. And they just better for sniping elite packs if that's what you're using for. This character can magic find, she can farm keys. I'd say her best task is Ubers, but when you're just targeting elite packs, you want to be pretty fast. Same thing for killing Ubers, you just want a faster attack speed to proc Crushing Blow and to deal as much damage as possible. So I kind of prefer those, however you can definitely go the slower, more powerful weapons, and you can still reach some pretty good attack frames with them. Another thing to note is if you have a really good pair of like Ethereal Titans or a really good Ethereal Rare Javelins, you can use a Javelin as well, in addition to a Phoenix or a Storm Shield, depending on how safe and how much damage you want, or how much sustain from the Phoenix. And you can do almost as much damage as with a two-handed weapon. Two-handed weapons, on most builds, you don't want to use two-handed weapons, especially on like a Paladin, because you have Holy Shield, and Holy Shield is just so ridiculous, you want to take advantage of it. But on an Amazon, where you have dodge, avoid, and evade and whatnot, and of course, even without those, and you have a lot of sustain from the life leech and whatnot, you really just want to go as much damage as you possibly can. So that's why usually a two-handed weapon is preferred here. G-Face. Alright, so G-Face, just damage. It's kind of like on the Mercenary. Crushing Blow, Deadly Strike. I have a nice jewel in here as well. It's giving me more attack speed, helping me hit the 125% attack speed. It's all kinds of stuff. I should also mention that in terms of a two-handed weapon, nothing beats Breath of the Dying for the most part. So Breath of the Dying is just so much damage. And this one rolled pretty good too. Life Leech. Mana Leech, it gives you everything you want. Strong amount of attack speed. It's pretty much the dream weapon for this character, but you want even more attack speed on a G-Face. And if you can get it. Even just a regular attack speed jewel would definitely be pretty effective here. I should mention though, like an Lycander's, I mentioned some like budget versions of the weapons as well, but there's other budget weapons such as like Ariox Needle, Stone Raven, you name it. Of course, for the helm, you can use a more defensive approach. You can go Vampire Gaze, you can go Crown of Ages. Crown of Ages would be very good for hardcore, for instance. You definitely want as much DR as possible, or Vampire Gaze would be really good for hardcore. Those would be pretty nice. Even Rock Stopper would be better for hardcore, also gives you more res. High Lords, honestly, I don't really see much of a reason to use much else on this character. It's just so much Deadly Strike. It's so much. It gives you a much needed attack speed. There's only 2 amulets that give you attack speed, which are this and Cat's Eye. Cat's Eye, though, I feel like gives you more damage on a bow Amazon, not so much a Jab Fend Amazon. So I just feel like this is like the best amulet, really. You could use like teleport amulets for an Amazon if you want to forego the attack speed and the Deadly Strike and everything, and you want more mobility. But I honestly don't really recommend them because this build really needs as much attack speed and damage as possible. There's definitely things you could do, though. That, I don't know, might not be the worst thing in the universe. Call to Arms, Spirit, need those 2 skills to help out the Battle Command and Battle Orders. Call to Arms is really good. Call to Arms in general, It's giving you a ton of health and life, and the one extra skill. Of course, on a more budget version of the build, on your offhand and on your swap instead, you might have a teleport staff or something to help you get around. That's basically how that works. Good stuff. And yeah, like I'd say Cat's Eye is a lot more budget than High Lord, so if you can't afford that, I mean, Cat's Eye is still decent. Alright, armor. Alright, so armors, there's a lot of potential armors you could use. I'm going to use a different armor for Ubers themselves, which is Chains of Honor. But you can use a lot of different things. A lot of things are going to work. Fortitude is actually really good for getting way more damage if you don't care about your mobility. You just want to plow through everything. Fortitude is really good. Fortitude's really nice. I like Fortitude quite a bit for that. Fortitude's also really high damage. Which gives you pretty good res as well. There's a lot of other options too, though. Like Durus would still be pretty good against Ubers. Lots of things could still potentially be useful here. So even like Duriel Shell would be like maybe a really cheap option. You could wear like Shaft Stop. I don't know, anything that can help you like tank damage or give you some extra damage, basically. All right, gloves, laying of hands. So laying of hands, I'd use in almost every version of this build if possible. It's just so much extra damage, especially if you're like in Chaos or in general, like in the pit, like where there's a lot of demons. It just adds so much extra damage to your damage in general. And it also gives you 50 fire res as well, so that can be very good for doing Chaos or Travancore. And it has 20 increased attack speed, and you really need that attack speed. Obviously, you can get that attack speed from other places like crafted gloves. Crafted gloves tend to be pretty good. Steel Rend can be okay if you can get the attack speed elsewhere, or if you don't care about the attack speed as much. Drax is good for sustain against Ubers and giving you more open wounds. So yeah, there are some other options. Blood Fist would also give you almost as much attack speed, but give you more like FHR and whatnot, so there's definitely some other options there. I really like Nas Coil because it's helping us hit that 125% attack speed breakpoint for Fend, which we're just barely hitting on this setup here. And more Life Leech. It also gives us slowed target, which is kind of a hidden survivability stat, especially against bosses. And it's giving us some extra strength for damage as well. Really can't go wrong with Nas Coil here. Of course, more defensive belts or String of Ears and Verdungos against Ubers. Thunder Gods are very nice, especially against Uber Mephisto. So that's all going to be good stuff. Of course, Verdungos in general will also help you survive a lot of the other mini Ubers and whatnot. So there's a lot of good options. And you could even use Gold Wrap if you're more greedy for Magic Find as well, but then your sustain isn't as high. So yeah, once again, there's definitely ways to stack more MF on this build if you want to. Dual Leech Ring with attack rating, especially if you're going to be going the Enigma approach here. You're going to want the mobility and the damage provided by strength, and skills, and everything else in the Magic Find. If you're going to want to use Enigma, you're going to want mana, and you're going to want mana on Spirit to help you teleport. We are also, something I didn't mention, we are also hitting the 32% faster cast rate breakpoint for teleporting. If you use an Arachnid's Mesh and maybe some FCR rings, you can also get to the 68% faster cast rate breakpoint, or I believe also I think it's the 48% as well. So there's 2 more frames you can hit with more FCR if you want to teleport faster. One of the it's definitely a very good approach for this character, so definitely check it out if possible. Mobility is always going to be a very solid thing in general. As a matter of fact, I think under the standard section of the Jab Fin Amazon guide, we also have some guidelines for how to increase your mobility even on the standard build. Because there's not even enough room to put another variant. That's just how many different versions of this character you can create. Ravenfrost. Ravenfrost gives you the cannot be frozen. You can also put a chain rune in your helm and whatnot. But it gives you attack rating and dex as well. It gives you cold absorb, just in mana. So many useful stats. I don't really feel the need to do that, especially when I need more attack speed. So prioritizing that attack speed. But you can definitely put a chain rune if you can get your attack speed elsewhere. You don't need it as high, and then you can use another ring. Gore Riders. In general, Leech, attack rating, all that stuff is good. Damage stats, Deadly Strike, Crushing Blow, Open Wounds, Faster Unlock, all very good stuff on Go Riders no matter what. And of course, like I said before, War Travelers can be very good for Magic Find, and Goblin Toes would be a very cheap option, especially for killing bosses. And then we have, of course, a Torch and a Nanny, as good as you can get. Amazon Torch if possible. Res, Life Charms, you can definitely go for MF Res Charms, though. I would recommend those if you're doing magic finding. You can definitely go for FHR if you need FHR down here. FHR Res, FHR Damage, Damage, AR, Life. Those charms are very good for dealing more damage. So it's all a balancing act, making sure you have like decent res and decent damage and whatnot. And then of course you have all these kinds of charms giving us FHR, damage, AR, life, and whatnot. When we do Ubers, we're going to be switching out a lot of these for res, and res is going to be a lot more important. Trying to survive Uber Mephisto and whatnot. So yeah, and of course we have some other good FHR and res and life. So it just shows that there's just a lot of different types of charms you can use on this character. It kind of depends on what you're farming. If you're farming a lot of chaos and you're only farming chaos, you might want to max out your fire res. It kind of just depends on where you want to go. Alright, well, that's a pretty good overview of her gear and kind of what kinds of gear options are available to her based on different situations. There's definitely a lot of different situations depending on if you're playing hardcore, softcore, what you're farming, what kinds of things you want to do. That's why we have a lot of gear variants on the Maxroll guide. So remember to check out that written guide, that Jab Fend Amazon, if possible. It's going to be really, really, really good stuff. All right. Cool. All right. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go test this fool. We're going to show you what she's capable of. Alright, so we're going to start with some high player count demos here just to show you guys like how powerful she is. In player 7, that's the max player count for the best odds of a monster dropping loot if it's not elite. Elite monsters always drop loot. And of course, before we do anything too much though, I'm just going to explain. I guess you got to see a bit of a taste there just for fun. To kind of explain kind of what's going on here. So I try to have like Fend and Jab separate. Jab is going to be your single target damage ability for the most part, and Impale is good for utility against bosses. You can open with it if you want. Fend you're going to be using most of the time when you jump into the elite packs, especially if you have some form of teleport, but you can just walk under the packs as well and use it. Slow missiles, very useful if there's a lot of like high damage missile enemies. Decoy and whatnot. It's pretty good stuff. Decoys are just a good way to also detract damage. And Valkyrie. Now Valkyrie, you're going to want to cast Valkyrie where your plus skills are in your offhand. Of course, where you also cast your battle orders and battle command if you have CTA. And overall, it's just really good stuff in general. Alright, let's go. So as you can see, I just popped a mana potion there. Definitely bleeds some mana quite a bit when you're teleporting like that. You always teleport on your offhand anyway though, so you have your SCR on your spirit. And then you swap to your main hand. And then you go to town. And you can see here I can also use Jab. And then I can use Fend most of the time. Most of the time, you're gonna want to use Fend. That's the ticket. Most of the time. Alright. So as you can see, she destroys player 7 hit. Her damage is out of this world. It is out of control. It is crazy damage. This damage is crazy towns. Just jumping into monsters and just fending them down. And you can also see we don't really take that much damage. Now it's partially because Jab and Fend and Impale are quite a bit broken right now. You can check out another video on my YouTube if you want to see how broken. But, you know, that might change before ladder launches, so I wouldn't pay too much mind to it. I'd say a lot of the survivability from this build, which I've tested without patch 2.4, really just comes down to the life leech. And of course, lowering their physical resistance with the Decrepify on the Mercenary. And of course, if you're going to use the Phoenix approach with the one-handed weapon, like an Ethereal Titans, or really good Ethereal Javelins, it could be even better. Alright, so yeah, she can target elite packs, no problem. She has no problem with this. We can of course show her off in other areas as well. We can show her off in one of the new areas if we want, in the Arachnid Lair. Which is going to be a new 85 area coming up here. We're going to launch our new updated 2.4 patch farming tier guide, the ultimate farming tier guide as well. You guys can see where builds like this one are actually effective at farming and whatnot. So that's a physical immune. That's going to be a little more challenging to kill. You can see though, Fend is very reliable. You can just jump on the monsters, and Fend has so much attack speed. As long as you have a lot of attack speed on your gear and hit really good frames, he's going to hit really hard. So yeah, you can do that. See, this is a single target, and as you can see against single targets, jab is very good. That was even without Decrepify, and I took him down pretty fast. But Decrep definitely helps a ton with your damage. Now this area here can have, I think, somewhere between 2 to 4 elite packs. So it's decent in general. Yeah, look how fast we just full healed there. I think that's probably the best demonstration of her survivability. We're all the way down there in health. Just went right back up instantly. That's because we do so much damage per hit. It's a really big deal to have all this damage. It's not a joke at all. Alright, so. Let's hit it. Let's do some chaos. Now, chaos is pretty dangerous. And this is where the attack speed variant on the Maxroll guide, the written guide, definitely tends to shine. Having all that bonus attack speed helps you resist Decrepify and whatnot. Be ready to juve if you need to at any point. You can see though, in general, she can hold her own, even in Player 7. Remember, these are Player 7 demos, so we're talking high player count. She is not a joke of a build. A lot of builds that are ranked lower than her are considered maybe not super viable builds. Ones in like the D and the F tier for like late game farming. They don't do too well in high player count no matter what. But this character definitely can. Also want to remind you guys, we'll have the timestamps, of course, for all of the different sections of this guide, so you guys can review them on your own. And of course, you can pick out anything in case you miss anything, or there's something you don't care about, or there's something you already know. Oh, look at Bone Snap. So yeah, that's all good stuff, though. You can see though, this guy is physical immune, and so then I switched to jab here because I'm only hitting one monster, and that tends to be more effective. Fend doesn't respond quite as well against single targets. I think that's just how the skill works. It's always looking for additional targets, so if you're only hitting like one target, it doesn't do as well. And I can try to show that too if you guys want to see it. I'd say her strongest farms, though, are probably Travancore and Ubers overall. These are all decent farms, though. She can pretty much farm whatever she wants. There's a lot of things she can farm, especially if you have gear like this. If not, there's a lot of starter recommended areas in the Maxroll guide under farming spots. Okay, a tiara. I can't help myself. Oh, it's a thrill? Eh, whatever. Odds of that being good? Practically none. Now, see, I can put a decoy here if I want to. Make sure to use those support skills, especially if you're not as strong as I am. Valkyrie, really solid support skill. Decoy, very good stuff. Inner sight. Slow missiles is very good in Worldstone Keep in a lot of cases, so I'll try to show that off. My fire res is actually pretty trash right now, so that's not good. That's if they lower res me though. I don't have that much. I don't have stacked res or anything. Bam! Alright. So as you can see, this character has no problems clearing player 7 chaos. Honestly, I'm kind of tempted to think she's like B tier, honestly, but it's kind of tough. She definitely doesn't. She's not as clean as the Zealer and a lot of other physical builds, but as you can see, though, for a really fun build, a lot of them. So if I go like Fend here, you can see it's not as good. But if I use Impale, look how slow he moves now at Decrepify. I just hit him with Impale. Now he can't even move at all. He's gonna stand perfectly still and just let you kill him. That's the strength of Impale right there. Of course, I tried to show you Fend as well, but you could see that Fend wasn't doing as much damage as Jab. You can kind of see the transition there, which is what I was trying to show. It's pretty apparent. Pretty apparent stuff. Alright, so
Yes.
let's go do one of her very strongest farms. Very strongest farms, okay. Travancore is kind of like the Zealer, so the Zealer is also really good in Travancore. And this is one of the things that makes this character very powerful characters in general. I'd say the Zealer is a little bit more reliable though. Maybe not as clunky. This character is definitely way less clunky than she was, but there's still some elements about the Jap Fin Amazon that can be a little difficult. I'm using Jab a bit here. Mercenary biffed it. So you can see here. Oh man, we got the physical meme. This is player 7 council though. Of course, ideally you would farm council on players 3 if you want the best odds per efficiency. Or per time spent. But as you can see though, no joke whatsoever. As you can see, you know, I like saying as you can see. You guys can see though, we ain't clowning up in here. We ain't clowning up in here. Alright.
Yes?
This build crazy. Now my mercenary survived, you know, you can kind of see that. As long as he gets decrep on him, he's no problem really. Now you can see that Zeal, even under this condition, could take him down quite a bit faster, right? Even in P7. Now P7 physical immune to Ismail is no joke, but you can see though, we're doing pretty well. Alright, let's continue the player 7 demo here. Let's continue.
Yes.
Alright, so let's do one more. No, you know what? Let's do 2 more areas in player 7 if we can. Technically 3. I'll show you guys like Pendle Skin. And then I'll show you guys Nulithok, and I'll do Bale. And then when we do some P1, I'll just show you her damage in P1 in a few areas briefly. Just to show you guys just how ridiculously strong she is if you're farming solo and you're not on single player and can't set the player count. So yeah. There I was finishing off with jab. That's why if you always have jab and fend out, you can always kind of max how much damage you're doing to different types of packs, whether or not it's a single target, a relatively isolated target like a boss, or just jumping in an elite pack like this. Going ham. Jab is also decent at just attacking from the front, but fend is just so good. So use that fend for sure. Alright, player 7 Milliflock. Can we handle it? I think we can. So you can see though, I keep switching to Spirit Monarch to teleport. Like I said though, if you have other faster cast rate gear, you can make her a lot faster and whatnot. It's just a general very good stuff. Okay. Here we go. Yeah, I love this character. This is such a fun character. You might wonder, can I survive player 7 Death Lords? That's a pretty good finish check. Can. Look how fast I leech. And if I have enough faster hit recovery, I won't get stuck. Of course, I wedged them kind of in between a wall there, but it doesn't matter too much. It's a really fun build. Alright, so let's see here. We got Hulls of Light. Got this one. Alright, let's jump in the middle once again. This really well geared one just destroys everything. Now, even if you don't have this level of gear, she will still destroy players 1. Almost as well. She's strong no matter what, but you know, this is really a show of force here when you test high player count here. Because that means that this is simulating a full game pretty much. Everyone is in this game, and I'm just killing a solo. Alright, so World Stone Keep is always a great test of a build. As long as your res are decent. My res aren't amazing, but you know, it'll work. You can see though. Very good power. Very good in general. So after this, we're going to demo Players 1 briefly, show you guys a couple of his differences, to show you guys the difference solo with really good gear like we have here. And then we're going to try to show you guys Ubers. Now Ubers, I'm going to swap out some gear, there's going to be some small differences, but overall, it's Ubers are solid. The thing about Ubers, though, is that it can be not necessarily the cleanest Ubers in the universe, but very solid. We're going to show you guys the more dangerous version where you just go ham with a two-handed weapon like this character right here. Of course, you can definitely use a Storm Shield and an F Titans. It would be a really cheap way to destroy Ubers. Even a non-F Titans would work, at least to some extent. Alright, here we go. I feel like if, maybe Jab and Fend had a little more damage, this would be a B or an A tier build. Pretty easy, but maybe a little more responsiveness. Some of those other melee builds just have it a little bit easier in terms of how responsive they are. But this build in some ways does even more damage than, Frenzy, so I don't know. Kinda just depends. Then again, Frenzy has its own mobility and it's a lot cleaner sometimes. Alright, sweet. Yeah, I could see this build eventually being like rated B tier or something at some point. Look out for that. Be even a better build for overall linking farm, fish and uber farming. There it is. Alright, so as you can see, we're just destroying Bale now. High player count World Stone is our playground. Our survivability might be a lot higher than maybe, or maybe, I wouldn't say a lot higher, but like decently higher than will be launched simply because of how strong dodge, avoid, and evade are currently. But you can see though how quick I healed up from almost no HP, so you can do it. And like I said, there's a lot of ways to make this build tankier. This build right now only has, I believe, 8% damage reduction. So if you just like put some damage reduction on the helm and the belt, get a similar amount of life leech. This build is super tanky, even without that crazy dodge, avoid, and evade. Even with two-handed weapon. Even with the two-handed weapon. Alright, make sure we gotta use jab there. Notice how tanky the Valkyrie is if we max the Valkyrie. So the Valkyrie is doing a pretty good job. Of course, we can always put out our decoy here. And, I don't know, let's say that our attack rating is kind of crap. We can just use Inner Sight. Inner Sight has to be used near enemies, just like... so you can see the little sparkles on them. That means that it applied to them. Use it on Mr. Bale, too, I believe. But yeah, you can reduce their defense. I mean, you could even put more points in Inner Sight, but Inner Sight just usually slows you down, so you don't usually need it. Oh, we got unlucky. Oh, no. Damn. So we're decrepified, they're decrepified, so everything is fair. Of course, we could pull them out down there so Bale doesn't decrep us. That's probably the best move. Ah, Bale got us right before we moved. Rip. Down here, usually can't decrep you then. Alright, so yeah, as you can see, even in high player count, you can even take down Lister. It's gonna take a bit though. Remember, there's weapons that do more damage. This is the faster approach to it, for sure. This is definitely the faster approach. She goes to work, man. She goes to work. What can we say? Alright. And now... never want to kill Bale in Player 7. It's never a good idea. We'll just show off Players 1. His experience maxes out at Players 3, and his drops nearly do too. Alright, so this is where we should use Impale. Notice I used Impale there. He's much more likely to stand still when he's slowed. That's how Bale operates. So now, he's a lot easier to kill, comparatively to what we were doing before. That was a pretty easy kill once we impaled him, right?
Hello.
Remember, Impale is uninterruptible and it always hits. It's like Smite now. Always hits, uninterruptible. Just like Smite, but unlike Smite, it's very, very slow, so I wouldn't use it normally. Normally, it just doesn't do enough to justify using it. Just too slow. It just responds too slowly, leaves you vulnerable. But against single targets like bosses, it's perfectly fine. Alright, so now... let's go check her out here. So yeah, like I said, we're in the public test realm 2.4. You can see we're not messing around here. And yeah, good stuff. This character should be fully updated, even the video guide for the new ladder, and that's going to be sick. Alright, anyway, so let's go into some P1 testing just to show you guys how strong this damage is, or how ridiculous this damage truly is. And then, of course, we're going to do Ubers in Players 1 as well, which makes sense. There's no reason to do Ubers in higher player count than that, because you always get an Organ every time you kill them, and you always get one Torch and one Standard of Hero per player, of course. standard of heroes don't do anything. And regular D2, not yet anyway. Maybe they will at some point, but they currently don't. Maybe there'll be some kind of special ladder event. That'd be pretty sick. I always hope, or maybe there'll be like another in-game boss. I can always hope they continue to develop this game and potentially give even more content, especially to the diehards, and of course to for newer players. I feel like the focus of this patch has been a lot of like newer player focus, early mid-game focus, some late-game focus, and definitely some builds have been brought into viability into the late game to various in various forms. A lot of builds for sure have been elevated and made a lot more useful, including this one. As you can see in Players 1, she's no joke. One of her strongest areas is Travancore. She's just going to slam it, no problem. Yeah, so Hydras do way too much damage against the Mercenary. That's okay. Hydras have bug damage versus him. That's actually a bug or a quality of Hydras they haven't fixed. They fixed a lot of bugs, but that's actually something they haven't. They might in the future, though.
Good day.
So yeah, in Players 1, this character's kind of insane, honestly. In the pit, it almost looked like P1 anyway. I don't think we're gonna redo the pit. I'll show you guys like Chaos and Gale again. And that should be pretty much it for like showing you guys P1. Look at that one shot! Wow. Fend, baby! There's one. It's a lot easier to kill those physical immunes for sure.
I can't carry anymore.
A lot of times it might just be best to skip them though, because it just takes too long to kill them. No, we didn't make her a Valkyrie. At the very bare minimum, we should have your Valkyrie out. Oops.
Impossible.
Impossible! Impossible! Normally, of course, you'd actually pick up the items. We don't care because we're just doing a demo. Yeah, you can just totally snipe everything in P1. Just teleport around and snipe the elites and whatnot. You can see, we can one-shot, like, most of the key monsters. That is nasty, right? What are you doing, Mercenary? Alright. Yeah, most of the time we're just using Fend. Oh wow, I don't know how that happened. Defaulted this to normal attack there. Interesting.
I'm overburdened.
Alright. So yeah. Jews, baby! Look at that! Carnage! Oh my god. Well, as you can see, we have no stone unturned. This character is a beast. And in Players 1, we probably don't even have to bother with Impale, because I can probably just kill them with, like, jab almost instantly. I'm using jab against the Ubers, too. The Mercenary didn't get decrypt on him until the very end. Ah, Lang of Hands. Diablo GC! Not bad. Sometimes I find some pretty insane stuff while I make these guides, just randomly. Alright, so...
Good to see you.
Last time we found a Vex Rune or something. Alright, so... we have the power of the Ubers, so... oh wait, no, not Ubers yet, sorry. Let's go just show Players 1 World Stone as well. I see enough comparisons. Just look at that damage. Absolutely disgusting. Oh wow. Okay. Those things are pretty physical resistant, so that's not bad. Mercenary's gotta get that decrep. Remember to reposition your Mercenary to proc that decrep on the monsters you're hitting. That's pretty key. There I kinda got stuck a little bit, but you know, it's pretty easy. Now back in my day, dodge, avoid, and evade used to just be a punishment. And dodge, avoid, and evade were usually terrible in this build because they would get you stuck in an animation, but not anymore. Now it's just free damage mitigation. You literally just don't get hit when dodge, avoid, and evade. If I was Blizzard though, I'd lower those numbers for sure. If I was Vicarious. Gotta lower those numbers, man. Those numbers are insane. But even without the insane numbers, this character can sustain just fine. Might have to use some more juice here and there, but... Alright. Now look at that, Legacy mode. Alright. And just jump in the middle and start fending away. That's the way to do it. I'm so glad they doubled the attack speed on Fend, man. Without that, it was jab all the way, and it was just a really clunky build. Like, jab was actually better than Fend. Yeah, they did Fend pretty well in this public test realm patch here. Wow, why is he always getting stone skin? Oh my god. It'd be cool to show you like the insta kill him, but I guess not. Well, it's easier than the Player's 7 version for sure, but alright. Cool, we'll kill Bale one more time here. Show you guys Impale in the beginning, and then we're gonna go demo Ubers, and that will be it for the guide. Hope you guys learned a lot. Hope you guys are inspired to play this character. Hope you guys like what you see. Remember, once again, we'll have all the different sections of this guide and the timestamps in the description below. And the first pin comment. Wow. Okay, I kind of have to see what that is.
How may I be of help?
Kind of have to see what that is. Okay, let's see here.
Yes.
Let's see. Wow. Well, there's the insane item in this guide. Wow, there it is, YouTube. There it is. There it is, Maxroll. Check that out. The rarest unique Ami in the game. By far. More rare than Mara's, more rare than anything. A Metalgrid. That's pretty sick. It's maybe not the best amulet in most situations, but it is the rarest, and it's really freaking cool. Maybe one day I'll be buffed a bit. I mean, I don't know. It's pretty close to how strong you'd want it anyway, but yeah. Alright, so for mini Ubers, I'm just going to use Enigma for mobility, but there's a lot of different setups you can use depending on like which Ubers you're killing and whatnot. Jesus. You know what? I'm just gonna drop these on the ground and then, okay. Cool. Alright, so here's the deal. Alright, Forgotten Sands, that there is Duriel. Alright. wasted some of the charges on it for no reason. You really only have to enchant yourself, but you can also enchant your Mercenary, I guess, if you really want to. Keep in mind, though, don't rely on your Mercenary and Ubers. The Mercenary dies a lot when you do Ubers, so it's not very good to rely on. Now, I mostly only need this for, like, certain bosses. I could use this for, like, most of the bosses in general, so I'm just going to use a lot of my standard gear. As a matter of fact, I actually think for Duriel, I think it's probably better to just use what we currently have, and we just go for it. Alright, so there we go. You can make him even slower with Impale. Look at how Impale affects his attack speed. He's just a snail. And then, of course, Decrep also does a ton as well to slow the target, and so does Coil. You stack all that, slow his target, it's really easy. But look how fast he went down, though. That's no joke, right? It's truly no joke. Alright, so there is Duriel. Pretty easy kill, right? The buff on her from our Demon Limb giving us extra attack rating definitely lasts a bit. Look how much attack rating we have now. We have almost 14,000 with that. Other pre-buffs that will help us against other Ubers, though, like Treachery, which will be used against the final Ubers. You don't have to have it for the ones before that. You could use it for, like, Matron's Den, because there's a lot of physical damage in there, but you don't have to. Anyway. Alright, switch to Jab when there's only isolated monsters you want to kill, particularly elites and whatnot. You don't really need life tap right now. You could use a life tap one though if you're weaker than this version of the character. I'm just gonna use Drax against the final Uber bosses, so. Yeah, look how slow it. So right there, I just hit him with Impale. Look how slow he was when I hit him with Impale towards the end. Just gotta rewind that a bit. Just look how slow he turned. He was already decrypt, and then I hit him again, and then just look how slow he became. Absolutely insane. So that's why using Impale can actually be very good for this. It's a very good idea. Very, very good. Alright, and then of course, last but not least, the hard one, which is Lilith. Now against Lilith, I am going to add a whole bunch of poison res, because her poison res is pretty bad. I don't know if you guys saw that before. You can see now it's only 55. She hits like a truck. You don't have poison res, so probably a good idea to get as much as possible. I think we should have enough as long as we have like 74. Yeah, that's fine.
I am overburdened.
Still want to get totally like railgunned by her insane poison clouds. Of course, I was using Inner Sight there too as well. You can use Inner Sight against Uber bosses, but you don't have to. It's a free one-pointer though, so it's not too bad. Of course, you can also use Battle Cry, but Decrep will usually overwrite that, and so of course, we'll always overwrite it, I mean, and so we'll light tap. Alright, so clear the other ones. So see, I hit her with Impale, hit her again with Impale. You can hear that sound change too. Bam. Really easy, honestly. This character does Ubers insanely well.
Salutation.
I was using Fend, of course, against the, when there's all the monsters surrounding me. Just take them out first, then bam. Really easy, as you can see. Really clean. Really clean stuff, just in general. Alright, so now, it's time for the big Ubers. So against the big Ubers, we're going to want to use Treachery. We're going to want T-Gods. And honestly, let's even use Drax. We need more open wounds for them because they heal very fast. And having 10% is often not sufficient on this build. So losing some attack speed is going to happen here, but just has to be done. Of course, I can maybe also show you guys like certain damages with some of the other items, but there's a lot of other items you can use. We're about to put on Chains of Honor as well, because we don't really need to teleport in and out. I mean, we can. It does help in some circumstances. I might swap out some armors during the fight just to make it easier. But I think you guys get the idea at this point, though, right? Another thing is that we're really going to want as much res as possible, so we're going to want to stack our res to the moon. Remember, we want 310 light res about. Without 310 light res, it's pretty ouchy, if I'm being honest. Really, really hurts. Okay, so cool, we have 210 now, but it's not really enough. Oh yeah, we need... Okay, it looks like I put on too much. Ah, yes, okay. Well... It is what it is, man. We don't really need all this poison res, actually. Okay, cool. So let's just put on all this light res, and then we should be good, right? Yeah, that's solid. As a matter of fact, I think we actually have too much now. We can go a bit heavier on the cold res again. Alright, so. There we have it. More res, more life. A lot more defensiveness. We get our light sword from Mephisto. Our life tap. We can use a life tap wand as well. And of course, our treachery is going to pre-buff us. So we're going to pre-buff for this. The way we pre-buff Fade, which gives us a ton of res, curse duration reduction, and damage reduction, 10%. It's really good stuff. Alright. This is definitely a strong amount of damage reduction there. We're going to want to rebuff our Demon Limb as well. You might notice we don't have our crazy amount of attack rating anymore. So we're going to want to burn ourselves in the fire on purpose, and the fire will proc the Fade, so it has 5% chance to proc level 15 Fade when struck. And hopefully it doesn't take forever. We'll see though. Anyone that does this knows that sometimes you got to find that right spot where you're ticking quite a bit. We're in a pretty good spot, I think, right now. So hopefully this... Alright, there you go. So you can see when all of your res turn like white like that, you're good. And of course you have 316 light res. That's the really important one. Having some fire and cold res also helps against Mephisto's mages quite a bit. Hopefully the Mercenary doesn't die, but he probably will. He usually dies against Lilith. We got kind of lucky there, so that's nice. Of course, we can always just rehire him if need be. Alright, so now we're going to use Chains of Honor. So that can give us even more res. As you can see, our res is like insane now. Actually, with Chains of Honor on, do we really need... You know what? Yeah, we don't need Chains of Honor. Not on this build, because we have so much res on this version of the build. Or I could just sacrifice some extra res. I can get some damage. Damage! Alright, that works. I think we still have enough FHR too, so we still have, yeah, 57. That's pretty solid. 152 if possible. Alright. Cool, and then we're gonna go for renewing this one. Make sure we get as much attack rating as possible by pre-buffing enchant off Demon Limb. Alright, so now we have pretty good amount of attack rating. Honestly, not the best, but it'll be fine. And then, alright, we should be good now. I think I checked everything. Ubers are a bit of a different beast. Definitely gotta make sure you have that res. And make sure you have everything kind of set up. Alright, yeah, we'll use Chains of Honor. We'll just make ourselves so tanky that Mephisto doesn't have much of a chance here. Alright, so we could use Decoy here. Alright, let's try to move Mephisto out, away from the other ones. Diablo and Bale. Alright, as you can see there, the Mercenary got diffed. That's okay. There we go. Bam. Pretty easy. As you can see though, our attack speed's definitely taken a bit of a hit, but it's worth it for this extra open wounds on this particular version of the build.
Good evening.
Gotta get enough. You could also get enough with Durus, of course, I mentioned that before. The extra life leech on Chains of Honor is also helpful, even when you don't proc life tap, so it's good stuff. I'm gonna rebuy the Mercenary though, and then let's go again. So let's go find Bale or Diablo, so let's see. Who wants to play with us first?
My brothers will not have died in vain.
You can use Fend, of course, to take out any other monsters that come near you. Overall, you just hit jab. All that crushing blow on her gear, open wounds, resistances, damage reduction, life tap, still work. Bale can be a bit of a challenging to finish off sometimes. Definitely annoying. Be a bastard for sure. Alright. Bale. Yeah, Bale has a lot of regen, so that's why we have all this open wounds so that he doesn't keep regenning. That's the main reason for that. Alright, so we can use Battle Cry if we open up against Diablo. On him. Use Impale on him. Man, look what the Mercenary is able to accomplish there. Mercenary is actually staying alive, which is nice, so. What if he doesn't? Pretty easy. There you go. There you have it, everyone. There she is. Let's go ID the torch, of course. I'm sure you guys might be curious about that. We'll see, though. We'll see what we get. Alright, 2020 Sorceress. Let's go. Alright, guys, that will be it for the guide. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Learned a lot about the Fend Amazon, and hope it looks like a pretty awesome build. She might not be the highest tiered build in terms of overall efficiency and overall versatility. However, she's extremely powerful. I wouldn't be surprised if she even makes it into the upper tiers, not just the mid tiers at some point. She's very strong. She's very fun.
Good to see.
It's a very fun way to play the game, and it's a build that is stronger than ever. So, because of that Fend buff, look out for that Fend Amazon. Look out for that physical stabby, pike Amazon. It's never been so fun to stab shit.
Yes.
As it is with this character. So if you guys enjoy that for sure. Oh, it's 1418 Necromancer Torch. Alright. Very good. Let me know, of course, in the comments below what you guys thought about this guide and whether or not you made one yourself and how much you liked it. Of course, you can also ask me additional questions in the comments. Remember, once again, the timestamps will be in the description and the first pinned comments, so make sure to look out for those as well. And check out all the rest of my guides on d2.maxroll.gg. I'm going to be updating all of them for 2.4 that are currently on there. And of course, you'll have more fun guides in the future. And also check out my farming tiers guide launch for 2.4 patch. This is the ultimate farming guide for D2R for every build, every item you might be looking for, and even different, and even experience at different character levels. So you can check out all that stuff to kind of see how different areas perform under different conditions, and make your own decision about how you'd like to farm in this game. There's so many things you can do, so many possibilities. Even though, you know, the top end of the meta, maybe the late game meta, hasn't been shaken up too much by this patch, in terms of the very best builds. So many more builds are awesome to play. So many cool things you can work towards and you can farm towards when the ladder begins. Anyway, I'll see you there. Playing hardcore, going to 99 at D2R. You guys are beasts, of course. And see you guys next time for more fun information. Remember, you can always catch me at twitch.tv/Dark Humility for 6 to 7 days a week of Diablo 2 action. And subscribe if you like this video. Alright. Dark Humility. Over and out. See you guys next time. Let's get it.